This is an orthokeratology case where the patient is a compound myopic astigmat and recently started ortho-K, and we have the baseline as well as the 1-day post-wear topo showing. And after 1 day, we're getting pretty well-defined treatment zones and good vision in the right eye, but the left eye, the post-wear refraction I think was around +2 -175. So the patient has become a hyperopic astigmat in the left eye with poor uncorrected vision. And so I would say one of the things I would do is actually give the patient a little bit more time. I very rarely will make lens changes after just 1 day of wear. I like to have a very well-defined target when I make lens changes. And so for me, that usually means at least 2 refractions and 2 topographies that are several days apart, as much as a week apart, that show consistent findings. I think there's tends to be a lot of variability in the vision, especially when a patient just starts ortho-K, and sometimes chasing this target turns out to be chasing a moving target, and we don't know exactly where the cornea is going to settle yet. That said, I am going to bring up the lenses and I'll share some thoughts on those. One of the neat tricks that Wave does for us is if you click the over refraction button, it tells us as long as we don't have any over refraction entered, the computer will tell us how much internal cylinder there is. So in the right eye, there's half diopter against the rule, which is manageable. It's meaning we expect this to still remain in the patient's refraction, and it does. I believe this correlates quite well with the post-wear refraction you were getting. And half diopter cylinder against the rule is probably not a deal breaker. In the left eye, if we do the same thing, we see this patient's got a diopter against the rule. Now we're getting into the area where it might be kind of visually significant. And if we look at the lenses, you did go with oval treatment zones in both eyes, axis 90 in the right, and then 45 in the left. And I would, especially with internal cyl of just half a diopter, I think going with a spherical zone is probably going to be okay. The patient's getting good vision in the right eye, so I would not make any changes to this lens because if it's working, it's working, and success is its sometimes its own reason to not change things. So I think it's fine to leave this side alone, although I would guess that if we had gone with just a spherical zone, the patient would have a very similar post-wear refraction where there's half a diopter of against rule cylinder. In the left eye, if we look at the corneal cylinder, it's a little bit more than half diopter, axis 45, but the patient's refraction shows 1.5 diopters, axis 75. So this would lead me to assume that the patient has probably around a diopter and a quarter of internal lenticular cylinder at around axis 90. Excuse me. So in the left eye, I think if we were to do an oval zone, it would probably be at axis 90 as opposed to the axis of the corneal cylinder. That said, I would still start with a spherical zone. And so what I recommend is if the post-wear refraction you're getting is pretty consistent from the one that you got 1 day after beginning lens wear, I would actually go back to a spherical treatment zone, and I would set the power low to, I think what you had here, about 1.25, which should be plenty for this amount of myopia, and let the patient adapt to that and see where the refraction ends up. If you're still getting a fair amount of post-wear cylinder that's visually significant, My guess is it'll be around axis 90, and then you could try an oval zone with the longer diameter in the 90 meridian, just like you did in the right eye. With the aspheric optics that ortho-K tends to put into the cornea, that will also mask some of the cylinder. Even with a spherical zone, you will get some sphericalization of a toric cornea. I don't know if you'll get a little more than half diopter, but you should probably get some. In other words, I'd like to see with a spherical lens how much cylinder really remains before switching to an oval optic zone. So starting with a simpler design, I think allows us to see how much that design will accomplish for us, and then from there we can decide really how much additional change we need to build into the lens. So I would start a new lens just based on, and not, excuse me, a new lens not based on this one. So it'll be a new lens, but we're not going to start with the previous design. I usually don't, and I don't think you did either. Refraction remains the same. So just go into your configuration settings and all the same parameters that you used for the initial lens, you can put in here with a target of 1.25. You can switch it to freeform. Just match everything except just leave your target at 125, and it'll give you a new lens, spherical treatment zone with a base curve that should match your original lens, except it goes all the way around. So try this lens out first and see what kind of refraction you're getting after that, and then troubleshoot based on those findings. So best of luck with this patient, and thanks for watching.